Hey, Lenore.
Hi, Melissa. How are you?
I'm okay. Welcome to Mind Mingle,
Yeah. We're gonna have fun today, as usual.
as usual. So, I said to Lenore, I wanted to talk about friends today because friends are such an important part of life. And I think sometimes as you get older, they might get minimized. Do you feel that way? Like when you're a kid and when you're a teenager, your friends are a big deal. And I think as we get to be adults, sometimes we don't always put the value on them that we should.
Well, I'm in a different age bracket than you are, and when you're nearing retirement age, they do get to be more important,
Oh, I love that.
which is really interesting because as everybody leaves their jobs, they're looking for these social connections,
Right.
and it kind of actually is, well, pickleball makes it like a lot easier, but
Well, I was gonna say I wanted to talk to Lenore about this because Lenore is a great crew. She runs around town with pickleball and music and
it's an evolving crew. It's
yeah, I
not the
like it.
crew that I had before, that's for sure. So,
Hmm.
and as you see people go into retirement village, like
Hmm.
retirement, like the villages in Florida,
Right, that's a massive.
they all have new crews.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
All
I think
right.
it does it. You're right about it leaving you in adulthood as everybody gets busy with kids and jobs and stuff in general, it can go by the wayside.
Right. And in the recovery world, we talk about how important connection is. And they say the opposite of addiction isn't recovery, it's connection.
Hmm.
And I also was thinking about this yesterday. My friend and I are both going through a similar life event that's hard. And we were kind of like, hey, I'll be here for you. Hey, I'll be here for you. And they joked, well, we're both in the trenches. And I said, we are, but we can share shovels and stories. And we both laughed at that. But it's this idea of
Yeah.
like witnessing one another's pain.
So you're going to say shovels and shit.
Well, some days it feels that
Shovels
way.
and stories. Yeah.
Shovels and stories. So I always like the science behind things. I think that that's important. And Lenore and I are both neuro people here. So
Neuron adjacent.
neuro adjacent, yes. And so we we need friends from even a biological standpoint. So your dopamine, your reward system
Mhm.
is activated when you're with your friends. Your oxytocin, that really good bonding, trust, emotional
Hmm.
safety, and your default mode network are all online. So the default mode network, they help us think about relationships.
Oh,
The oxytocin is that good, like lovey-dovey.
the love connection. Yeah, the connection.
And then the dopamine, when you're playing pickleball and you and Donna score on the other
Yeah.
crew, you probably have that little burst, right?
That's right. Yeah. Or we joke around about it,
The giggling,
the
the
giggling.
giggling and like the talking crap and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
good, those good adrenaline like
Yeah.
feelings are dopamine,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. So you mentioned something good that people, we tend in the middle of our lives to maybe lose it a little bit,
I think
or it changes.
it does change. I think when you're an adult and you get into the job world, it becomes very difficult
Mm-hmm,
to find new friends because you've
mm-hmm,
lost your friends from school or high school if you've changed towns. And then you get into this adult world and maybe they're friends and maybe they're not. But it's definitely harder to make friends, I think. And then
mm-hmm.
when you have kids, it's easier to make friends because you're
Yes,
forced to.
yes,
And you're standing at the sidelines of soccer for hours next
right.
to another parent who's also standing at the sidelines of soccer for hours.
Mm-hmm.
So you build up friendships there. And but then when your children grow up and move away, it becomes pretty lonely pretty fast.
Yeah. And you made me think about, so I'm in a unique situation because I don't have kids, but all my friends have kids.
Yeah.
So I'm not in all of their friendship groups because I'm not at the cheerleading
Yeah.
and PTA
Yeah.
meetings and all of that. But you made me think of it when you're saying you're all on the sidelines. I think it also forces that collective. So my best friend is not a girly girl. She's just
Mm.
tough and all of that stuff. But her daughter is a cheerleader. So she's there making the bows and
Wow.
making the signs for
Yeah.
pep rally and doing all this stuff with the other cheerleading moms. And I tease her because she's gotten a new group of friends with the
With
cheerleading
the
moms.
cheerleading moms. Yeah.
So I tease her about it. But it is that idea of like we're all in this together. And that feels really good from a neuro perspective.
Well, we talk about we're all in this together. I mean, they always joke about like, don't make a relationship in rehab,
Mm,
but it's a pretty common place to
very
make a
common.
relationship because you're all in the same boat
Oh my
and you're
gosh.
all sharing trauma, which interestingly, I just was sharing with Melissa that I heard on a podcast that that's what makes really deep connections
Oh
is
yeah.
the sharing of problems and trauma and respecting the other person, hearing their story and, oh, how did you get through that? How did you make it through? What
Mhm.
did you do? And then kind of understanding that they haven't had it that easy and the same for you. And that's what makes the most connections. So I think it's funny that they tell you don't make a connection in rehab because you don't have a love relationship in rehab because you're probably
Oh,
going to, right?
well, yes, I worked in rehabs for a very long time. But I will say some of the friends, some of the purely platonic friends that have come out of rehabs have been the most beautiful things I've
Yeah.
witnessed because there's a uniqueness to, I understand this really unique, awful life event that everyone else might not.
Yeah.
You use the example of rehab. If you're, you know, if you're running your life in an effort to maintain a drug addiction, that requires a whole different skill set than someone who
It's
does
true.
not
That's true.
have an addiction. And so trying to explain to someone who doesn't have an addiction what it's like to rummage through your family's safe or rummage through their prescription pills and going to Home Depot to steal the saws and the power tools to then return it for money. You're talking a foreign language to people who've never had a drug addiction issue, right?
True. Yeah.
But to someone else who's had it, they're like, "Oh yeah,
I get it. I get it. Yeah,
I get it."
that's really interesting.
Yeah. So friends regulate the nervous system. We found that when you have a safe connection, it actually activates calmness in the brain. And the opposite, the isolation, really activates that threat response. So we talk a lot about co-regulation. We even were seeing that before we started the podcast. Lenore and I were both giggling. We were co-regulated.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. We were.
It becomes infectious,
It becomes infectious. Yeah, that's true. That is true. They do you do regulate the nervous system with friends. I think they make you feel like maybe like you're a child again. You can
Yes.
experience that childlike joy. And if you're not talking deep, it certainly gets you out of your head about the deep problems and issues that you have, right?
Right. And it keeps things in perspective. I think you need that mirroring because something might be a catastrophe in my brain, but then when I talk to Lenore about it, she might be like, well, actually, we're just going to do this, this, and this. And that brings down some of that intensity that if I just was dealing with it on my own, I could.
And I also don't think we can't survive without each other. And we know that. And you hear people say, like, I'm going to go off the grid and I'm not going to depend on anybody. Well, good luck. I mean, unless you know how to fix every single thing on earth, including how to give yourself an operation, I'm not sure how that's going to work out.
Including an operation.
Well, they do. They like stitch themselves up on those Alaska shows.
I know. It's wild.
Just like, Jesus. But we do need each other. We all need each other. I think we were meant to live locked together and connected with a variety of skill sets.
So I work with a lot of people that, as a result of their mental health, making friends can be hard. And you might have the similar experience, or maybe not with your clients, but what would you say to someone who wants to make friends?
Not only that, it's becoming harder.
It is.
Because the brain is changing because of phone use, because we text. There's something to be learned about social cues.
Yes.
So if I know that Melissa cocks her head in a certain way, I just said something that might have offended her. And then I might say like, well, okay, did this offend you? We're not getting that on text messaging.
True.
And I think it's the occipital area of the brain that is now decreasing. It's losing this ability.
That's terrifying.
So it's becoming more difficult to make friends, which it's more difficult to read social cues. What's the definition of one of the definitions of an autism diagnosis is the inability to read social cues. So phone dependence is going to make that worse.
It's such a good point.
And where do you go to learn social cues? Social cues school. I mean, they have some social skills classes, but it's really difficult.
It's difficult. So I recommend people make small attempts, right? So I think we do live in a very isolative community. So, I mean, I'm a talker, but even here, if other people's clients are coming in, not just my own, I say hi to everyone. I offer everyone a drink.
Right.
And one, I want to be friendly, but two, it's like, I don't want to lose that ability, right?
And you could tell the ones that are uncomfortable with it. Some people are very uncomfortable. And I think, certainly in my generation, I grew up with talking to people. I had to go to the bodega down the street. I had to use money to interchange. I had to talk on the telephone.
Right.
But young people, I forget what the generations are called, but the 20-year-olds, the 17-year-olds are terrified of making a phone call because they can't. I think these areas in their brain are just decreasing from lack of use. That's what I think. Right?
You know what? You made me think of something. I do agree with you. You made me think of something. So I have a kiddo client who's 11, and it was adorable. They wrote their parents a proposal on why they should have a boyfriend. They're a little girl. Their parents said they're too young. So they wrote a proposal, which, by the way,
I like that.
Was very good. It was very well written.
I like that.
And very impressive. Their parents actually asked them if they used AI because that's how well written it was. And they hadn't. I was impressed as well. But they wrote a wonderful proposal, which I think shows a lot of thought process, creativity,
making a case
for themselves. And they sent it to their parents, and their parents wrote back in it. But then at the bottom said, "Come downstairs and see us. We're in the living room." So it made me giggle from like an adult perspective. But also it was like, okay, we did the written form. Now come, we're going to be face to face and have this conversation.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
Because there probably was this part of her that was a little intimidated to go to them face to face and ask.
She did it in the way she was most comfortable. So when we're talking about social cues, what's really interesting is flirting.
Oh,
okay. So flirting by nature is supposed to be ambiguous, right? It's really supposed to be ambiguous. You're not supposed to know what flirting, if somebody's flirting with you or not. That's the nature of it, right?
I think our society has lost that.
They're fishing and they're seeing if you take the bait. And if you take the bait, then they're flirting. But if you don't take the bait, oh, you know what? You misinterpreted that. I wasn't flirting, like they just kind of walk away and they're not embarrassed. But flirting is definitely one of those skills that people are like, I don't know if they're flirting or not. Well, you're not supposed to know.
That's and that's another lost art, talking about this generation.
Yeah.
That is another lost art.
That's on this season of Summer House,
by the way. Oh my gosh, I can't.
One girl doesn't know how to flirt. Yeah. And so a lot of social cues are meant to be ambiguous.
Yeah.
Like how women, if they don't want to be your friend anymore, then they're never going to say, I don't want to be your friend anymore. They're going to do a whole bunch of weird shit like avoid you or not return your calls or not text back.
Be a little more stoic when they used to be giggly with you.
So all this stuff is kind of, really pretty interesting, right?
It is. And I think my encouragement is, don't lose these skills in your brain, like Lenore's saying. Don't get so wrapped up in your phone. Lenore and I work together, and I'll come downstairs to talk to her if we're both free. I won't just text her because, one, I like the in-person connection, but two, you can become so isolated if you only refer on text, if you only refer online. And so it's great to have connections online, but broaden it. And even if someone's far away from you, get on the phone call. At least in the phone call, you can hear inflection and tone and cadence.
And if you have kids, force the social interactions. Take them to the grocery store, make them interact with the checkout clerk, make them make phone calls, and they're going to fight you on this. But if you don't, they can become more and more isolated, especially the kids that were, of the COVID generation.
To your point with the social cues, I was in a class, and they were talking about the COVID kids have trouble reading facial expressions too because of all the masks.
Sure. This is a skill set that they've lost. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. And that's true for everything. So what's really interesting is how the brain is evolving, how it interacts with people. Look at dating. Dating now is all online, right? There's just so many things that are going on with that. I don't see you. I don't see your facial expressions. I don't feel that body chemistry. I have this idea that there are millions of people out there meant for me, and I'm going to pass you by because somebody better might be out there. And that this is science. This is why people don't do well with enormous amounts of decision making.
No,
they do better when it's A or B. It's just like when you're a little kid, you could wear this outfit or this outfit. You can't wear every outfit in your closet.
You can have this boyfriend or this boyfriend. You can't have all the boyfriends.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. So yeah, I mean, I think all this is pretty interesting. The science is going to be really interesting moving forward.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But
practice these skills. Don't lose the social cues. Don't lose the ability to connect and be in front of someone.
And cherish your human connections, right?
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Lenore.
It was fun. Thank you. Take care.
It's all going to be okay.
It's all going to be okay.
Bye.